Alright, if anybody wants to join in for the fun, that's the Discord. Do you want to join? The cat is possessed. He wants on my lap, and then he wants my attention, even though I'm giving him attention. He wants more. Then he rubs up against the microphone because I don't think he wants you guys to be listening, having my attention, and then he goes behind the monitor. Yeah, so we're going to do a little bit of roundtable action here. I've got some thoughts laid out for ranked, and I'd like to bounce them off of other people, but, you know, talk through everything. I'm loading up my own game client here so that we can talk about all the tier 9 ships that you'll find in ranked. Hey, SAT Hush.
Hello.
Hello.
So, basically, we'll talk about things. I've got 6 different types of player that I've kind of thought about here, and ships that I'd like to highlight. So if you guys don't mind, I'll walk through it, my thoughts on it, and then I'll pause and let you guys kind of get some comments in as well. Sound good?
Okay.
Alright. So overall thoughts. Things to keep in mind with this season of Ranked. Just like any season of Ranked, I would suggest that you pick a ship that allows you to be as self-sufficient as possible. You don't have to rely too much on your teammates to do stuff. Teamwork is important, but I found in Ranked it's beautiful when you get it, but it sucks when you don't. So you want to try to pick something that you feel comfortable in playing on your own. The other thing that I have as a thought is, because it is arms race, there's all these different buffs that you can pick up, and in my somewhat non-extensive, unfortunately, playing on public test server, I found that the heal bonus is far more important than the concealment one, at least in my experience, and therefore I would say that going for ships that will blap other ships is far more important than ships that will do consistent damage over time. What do you guys think?
I kind of slightly disagree, because just thinking a tier 9 destroyer aspect, getting your concealment down to like sub 5 kilometers is going to guarantee torpedo hits much easier. Because especially in the tier 9 cruiser bracket, there's not really super strong cruisers here that are going to be able to tank the world. There's really only the one and that I could think of, and that's Kronstadt. That could possibly survive long enough for you once you get your concealment down that low that it's going to ruin your day.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're just going to wreck the world with torpedoes. But that's just my perspective on things, because I like my DDs way too much.
Yeah, my problem though that I had when I was playing Destroyer, that I was finding was, I found it too difficult to, yeah, I mean, I could get torpedo hits, sure, but while I'm doing that, my teammates are all dying, because I'm not spotted and they're shooting my teammates, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that was
fair enough.
That was my problem that I had with it. I completely agree on the concealment point. Yes, you're right. And just putting that out there, I know that there are other community contributors and just people in general that have posted their ranked thoughts and stuff like that. You should always check out them, check out me, make your own decisions and your own thoughts. You know, what I'm saying may or may not pan out. You never know.
Right. And also, Cthulhu, Alaska will be available for this tier 9 rank, because I believe it is slated for Alaska to come out that patch. Don't know if it'll be immediately, but it's supposed to be, from what I've been hearing, from what Wargaming's been saying, I think. Did they say it, or was it? I know there's a bunch of fucking developers saying something or other. It's just like, they went? Okay. Like, I remember someone ranking saying that Alaska was coming out there.
I wouldn't be surprised because it's tier 9 ranked, yeah. So why wouldn't you release a premium ship at tier 9 during that season? We haven't heard exactly when it will be released. We do know that it will be released for 1 million free XP.
Okay. That's all we know. Okay. Because I'm like, I don't... Like, Alaska doesn't really excite me. It's just like, fine. It's just... Eh, that's why it's like it was probably supposed to be coming out that patch, and they already announced it. But all right, whatever.
Yep.
It makes sense to me for it to come out then. But
Masur, thank you for the follow. Does anybody else have any comments on overall arms race, what that's going to look like before we talk about specific ships?
I think I'm somewhere in between you and Sad. I think the problem with the destroyers is that all the firepower destroyers doesn't have that good in terms of torp reload, and all the good torp reload both struggles to survive the first encounter.
Fair enough.
it depends. Like, I never really played enough arms race to really say a strong opinion of it when it was out, because I believe I was busy with other things currently in my life to play enough of it.
Well,
But just simply from like what just over reading on it, it's just like, as long as you have something like TRB or a quick reload, I really think they're gonna be, it's gonna be defining, to be brutally honest.
that's ranked. SAT, do you have any comments you want to share real quick? Okay.
I kind of wish they would. I kind of wish I knew a bit more about arms race because it's going to be completely different meta compared to the previous ranked seasons.
So what we know about arms race is that there are little circles that you can claim if there's a ship on it when the timer runs out. And the more ships that are on it, the stronger the buff becomes, correct? The more stacks that you get. And I believe you have to be within 10 kilometers of that circle in order to get that buff. So if you're like, just outside of the circle and there's like 2 destroyers in it, you will get the buff. There are different kinds of buffs: concealment, hit point repair, slow over time, rate of fire. I think that's it? Or is there something else?
I think there was a couple others, but I have to reread it over again.
It's complex, and so that comes down to one of my main points, and part of the reason why I think going for the BLAP is going to be your stronger idea, and that is because you're going to have an awful lot of players in ranked that don't know arms race, that don't understand it, and as a result, they're just going to YOLO charge for the buffs and stuff, but they're still going to default play, the way that they're going to play, if that makes any sense. So you're still going to have broadside cruisers. You're still going to have broadside battleships. You're going to have people playing off in the far distance, trying to save their star. You're going to have destroyers that are YOLO charging. Like all the fixins that you find in ranked, right? Just different buffs now. All right, so let's talk about there's 6 different playstyles that I've kind of tried to isolate here, or purposes to playing ranked. One is going to be what most people see with people that do their commentaries on ranked, and that's going to be Unicum players who want to rank out as quickly as possible. For that, I've got several different ships that I'm going to highlight here. Keep in mind that I might not highlight the ship immediately, and that's because I want to talk about that ship later on down the list. But if those of you guys who are joining, obviously, are welcome to talk about it, and if it comes up now, it comes up now. So I've tried to pick out the top picks for each of the different classes. For Destroyer class, I would probably say the Fletcher is a really good pick. The Fletcher's got its good guns. It's got the ability to spam torpedoes at a pretty decent rate. Hey, Caligula, thanks for the subscription. Appreciate that, man. It's got the torpedoes that reach out to, what was it, 10.5? Yep. So they're pretty good torpedoes you can spam with. It's got that epic smoke screen, which is very helpful. And all around, it's just a really good all-around destroyer. So I think Fletcher is going to be a really good pick. Some people are saying the Black is going to be a really good pick because, of course, it's got that radar. But I don't necessarily know that the radar is going to be incredibly helpful. It's gonna help to detect ships for that 20 odd seconds, 24 seconds with the radar booster, but it might be enough for decisive action, so that's nice. The negative, of course, being the torpedoes are incredibly slow. So I don't know. we'll see. That one could be a decent pick. Other picks that I think will be good, and I'll talk about this ship later. The Z46 is one. The Jutland is another one that's going to be very strong this season, and I think one of the biggest reasons it'll be very strong is because it's got the heal. So with the repair party, you've got the ability to not only duke it out, we saw Hoosh do that just now with the Jervis, but it can also repair damage. And then the other one that I think everyone's going to probably flock to is the Kitakaze, mainly because LOL 1/4 HE penetration. Plus IFHE means that you can just spam pretty much anything and everything you want. We'll talk more about the Kitakaze later. Guys, any other thoughts about destroyers?
I guess a dumb question would be, they announced radar changes. Is that coming in 8.0, or is that coming after that?
That's a good question. I don't remember off the top of my head. It came up and yeah.
Because that's the only time where I would see like Black overtaking Fletcher. Because if I remember reading those notes correctly, they increased her duration of her radar, and that will help her greatly. But
yes,
besides that,
we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Fletcher will still be good. Chongmu, yes, but I just feel Kitakaze will outclass them.
Yeah, and again, this is the Unicum build for people that are trying to rank out as quickly as possible. So they essentially want to win the easiest. And when they say Unicums, these are players who know how to use the strengths and weaknesses of the ships to their advantage and know the opposing ships as well.
Black is a little bit more selective. It focuses mainly on killing destroyers. And considering the concealment buff and arms race, Black doesn't mind as much, just because once you're detected, you can just pop smoke radar, and it doesn't matter how low your concealment is. You're going to get spotted either way.
Yep.
And Black has almost enough firepower to take out the destroyer 1v1. So if it has just a little bit of support, then the opposing destroyer will be dead, which is generally pretty good in competitive.
Yep. Now we've seen you in a Black replay, if I recall correctly, with AFT going max range for the laws. Probably not the best way to do ranked, but I know you've got some pretty good experience with the Black. All right, shall we move on to cruisers?
Oh, and Z46 I don't think will be that good, just because the HE firepower it's not very impressive, and the Hydro is a bit short on the range. Like, Black is a direct counter. Chongmu with radar could counter as well. True.
The main reason I brought up the Z46 is just the long distance Hydro being able to help lock down a cap. And of course it's got pretty good torpedo reload, which comes to play later in one of my other picks for the reason why I would pick Z46.
Well, at that point I'd much rather have the Fletcher, but you can definitely make Z46 work.
Yep, and that's the cool thing, is that really with ranked, it comes down to you, the player, what you are better with and feel more comfortable with. I've ranked out in ships that people have said were complete trash tier and stuff, and I've had a ball doing it. So keep that in mind. Alright, let's talk about cruisers. Now, I'm going to show you the Alaska here, and I want to put this out there real quick. I am a super tester, which means I'm bound by NDA. However, the Alaska is currently ready for release, which means that it is on my account as a community contributor. I am able to play it. Stats are being tracked, and there are no plans to change it before it's released. Alright, so I'm just putting that out there. So if anybody says, oh no, Zath is breaking NDA. No. So, Ska. Brady ship. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, with it being tier 9, there's no chance of carriers, which means you don't need any defensive fires. You can spec for complete Hydro and all that good stuff. So Alaska, why I think the Alaska is going to be so powerful of a ship is because of its guns and the ability to blap cruisers. When you take an Alaska into ranked, you are guaranteeing at least one other cruiser on the enemy team. So why not take a ship that will be a hard counter to that cruiser? So to me, that's going to be the Alaska with its 305mm guns. It's got the radar as well, which you can use to push enemy destroyers, spot things that are in smoke, that sort of thing. Very helpful. It's got the heal, which of course is very useful. It's got pretty good armor if you're able to do a decent job angling. with 27mm fore and plating. It's still going to get overmatched by anything that's above 380mm. So your 406 battleships, all the way up to the Musashi, will penetrate the front. So Alaska will be a fun pick, I think, this season. Kronstadt, I put as a maybe, and the reason I put as a maybe, we'll get to it later too, but it's got 25mm deck armor, which means it can be bow penned from even the 380s from like Alsace and stuff like that. Something to consider. I think Buffalo will be a very strong pick for cruiser. It's got the ability to blap, of course, because it's a heavy cruiser. The 203s with American piercing shells are wonderful. It's got radar, all the fixins. Neptune, I would say, is a maybe, and that's a maybe because you're looking for lapping destroyers. We'll talk about it later for another part of my list. So those are my picks for cruiser. Anybody else have any comments?
I'll start with the Neptune.
Okay.
Neptune is notably different from Minotaur. If you try to use the radar on Neptune, you actually cannot stealth radar. So the current radar range is 9.5, and Neptune's best detection is 10. So unlike the Minotaur, which has about a 1 kilometer buffer, Neptune has no ability to stealth radar at all. So that is a severe blow to using her as a radar bot. If you want to use her as a smoke, you can still do that, but of course you lose out on utility.
Yes. And keep in mind too, I believe that Concealment Expert is supposed to change so that it's a flat 10% impact, so that is actually a slight nerf to the Neptune's Concealment.
Yeah. Cruisers are really nailing the head. I mean, I don't really see anything besides like the St. Louis or Runa's bad picks. It's just like, as long as you have some utility, you're gonna find a purpose in battle.
Yep, and I'm gonna comment on these two ships a little bit later for one of the other player types. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten those.
Yeah, obviously.
Quick
but...
question.
Kronstadt's radar could be very useful. It's just that the guns I didn't find to be very comfortable to use. The vertical dispersion is wonky. You do get some random citadels on battleships to 17 kilometers, but if you get in too close, then you'll just overmatch every cruiser, except for probably Royal Navies.
Yep.
At least HE is good for hitting destroyers.
Does definitely have those railgun arcs, which is going to come in handy, but you are right that it's not as easy of a pick as a Stalingrad would have been if this was tier 10 rank, right?
Does Alaska have the improved angle?
I don't know.
I think it does have the American piercing shell angles. I think it's been a while, and obviously I can't comment from testing it, so I'm not sure with the release version it does or not. You can mouse over here and you can kind of see the characteristics of the shell damage, but it doesn't say what the angles are.
It's Alaska. It's another battle cruiser. People are gonna like it or they're gonna hate it.
Yep. One other thing to keep in mind with both the Alaska and the Kronstadt, there is a fire duration nerf set in place for the next patch. So it goes from 45-second to a full 60-second burn duration, which would be a bit of a nerf to both cruiser survivability.
Yeah. As long as they don't touch the DCP on them, you should be fine. Because most times they're not you're speccing for full fire prevention anyway on these ships, so...
Alright, let's...
Seattle
sorry, go ahead.
Seattle and Buffalo are both utility ships, but I don't think a lot of people like them, so they may not get used too much anyways.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, we ready to go on to battleships? Well, obviously everybody's going to be playing the Missouri, right? Missouri is a very powerful battleship for ranked. It's got the radar, which is really nice. It's got the American piercing shells as well, the main turrets there. If you like the ship, it's really good to play. It's got pretty good armor. It's got actually improved armor layout over the Iowa, especially in the front there. So that's kind of neat. It's a premium, so you can pop onto the ships. It's got insane credit earning. all that good stuff. So Missouri, definitely a pick for battleship. Now, I'm going to move on to some other ships that I think are pretty strong in the hands of Unicums. Again, this is Unicum right now. Jean Bart is a great ship in the hands of Unicums. You can exploit the ability to use your reload booster to knock down broadside cruisers and battleships, or even with HE against destroyers. It's got that ability to go bow on, it's got secondaries, all that kind of stuff. It's got some weaknesses, of course. That armor is 32mm, so you have to consider that. But it's an overall pretty good ship. I think, in my opinion, the most fun ship for Unicums is probably going to be the Izumo. In come the groans, right? The Izumo has been buffed and will continue to be buffed. I think it's supposed to get a 2.0 or even 2.1 Sigma upgrade in the next 2.0. Thank you. Its penetration characteristics have been buffed, and if you watch the replay from IHSM, you'll note that it cannot be penetrated through the rear, at least in terms of Citadel penetrations, because you've got that trolley belt right here. From the side, oh yeah, baby. But from the rear, not so much. So if you want to kite away with this ship, it's actually kind of a fun little trolley ship to kite away from, or with. So that's kind of nice. Personally, when I played the Izumo, I love the Izumo as I ground out the ship. Your mileage may vary. And maybe the Musashi, because it's got the lull pen capabilities that the Yamato has, but like we saw in Hushibao's replay with the Alsace, it's got that hexagonal citadel right there, which means ouchies if you showed that cheek too much. And that's what I think for the battleships. What do you guys think?
I disagree on Missouri. One reason, overmatch. It's just like, it's gonna be like, I only see really two battleships being mostly played, and that's Musashi and Izumo. Because Izumo, when she gets that 2.0 buff, I mean, I even have people that are like not very, very like into this game. They're saying Izumo is overbuffed. It's just like, with the corrupt value and the accuracy, that ship's gonna be insanely scary. But Izumo, once again, lacks overmatch. So you're going to probably see a lot of Musashis try to counter that, because they have the 18.1-inch guns. I mean, you'll see Missouri, but I feel like Missouri is just not going to keep up to those two. It's like the only thing that's saving Missouri from oblivion is this radar. That's it.
Fair enough. Other thoughts?
I agree with Izumo assessment. Like, after I grinded the Izumo probably like 2 years ago or something, when the Izumo was still, the punching bag for tier 9, and I thought it was meh back then. And after all the recent buffs, I hop into account that has Izumo, and holy shit, was it different! I immediately got an insane game like 190k or something, and I was just amazed with the improved armor performance, the improved gun performance, and that's set to apparently increase even further. And the Izumo just ridiculous. And on the overmatching problem, the interesting thing is the huge 32mm bow will get overmatched, sure. But you see the 305mm plating and the kiting thing? If you angle the Izumo backwards and sort of slowly reverse, it's actually not that easy to overmatch. Right. And the 57mm deck armor, it's mostly at the back as well.
Agreed. It's just like, just kind of continuing from that point, I also forgot one other battleship that will probably be also seen play, and that's one Freddy. Because it's the only other battleship that could ignore overmatch as well. But I don't know how she's going to perform.
I don't see a lot of Unicums taking her, mainly because in order to get your rear turrets unmasked, you have to give an awful lot of broadside. She is in my list for later, but I don't think a Unicum would take it that often.
Guns are too inconsistent. As far as I can tell, at the higher level gameplay, you would prefer more firepower, just so you can impact the game more. And FDG does not offer that.
True. That's why I said Musashi and Izumo are my top picks, but The only other battleship I know of that could actually go toe-to-toe with them, surprisingly enough, is this ship. Because when I went for my grind with it, I never was bothered by Izumo after her corrupt value or Musashi's when fighting in her. This is like, I just shrugged off the AP like nothing.
True.
That's why I think she's kind of that sleeper card. Like, that's why I'd be interested to see how she performs this season.
Also, you don't want. I would. Well, if you want to talk about secondary builds later, that's fine.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
no.
That's coming up. Don't worry. Okay.
Missouri, okay. I
Go
think
ahead.
Missouri will be okay, but not to be used as a battleship, but more of a cruiser, just because she still has radar.
And she's got pretty decent speed as well.
That's why I said she wouldn't go into Oblivion. It's just not going to be the strongest choice. Like Zath says there, it's just like cruiser, definitely, because that's how I play Missouri most nowadays. It's just like stay in stealth, wait for broadside, take shot, disappear, reposition.
There's also the question of like Missouri versus Alaska, and it just feels like it's just pushing more towards Missouri because Alaska could be overmatched by almost all battleships. Missouri only really being Musashi. They have the same fire duration. Missouri has like 10-15 more HP. So, yeah. And then Alaska just has like hydro advantage, and a couple of others. So it feels like I'd just much rather take Missouri.
That's a fair point. Yeah, and remember, these are all predictions. We don't know exactly how things are going to go until the season releases, and even then, every week or even every day, the meta seems to change, even by hour sometimes. So I don't necessarily know that it's fair to try to pick out a specific ship now and say this will be the best ship ever. But you know, again, that's the fun of talking through predictions, right?
Right. I was about to say, until you actually get into the meat and bones of it, it's just like clan battle seasons. It's just like, there's usually, these are going to be your strong choices going out forward, because just from math perspective, but your mileage is going to vary.
Yep.
It's just like, as you move forward, you're going to know by what everyone else is choosing around you, what buffs you're mostly dealing with on arms race, how the maps are flowing, like, okay, this ship, while strong, is not really suiting my needs, or it's not actually very good because this certain issue keeps cropping up. Then things will switch.
Someone just died.
And then you can be that one team that brings in 5 Moskvas, 1 GK, and 1 DM.
Right there.
Yep. All right, guys, shall we move on to the next player type? All right. So the next player type, these are players who are grinding up the lines and trying to get to their tier 10 ship. Ranked battles is a phenomenal opportunity to focus in one tier and prevent ships from other tiers from appearing. I'd use that with great effect with the Prince Idol Frederick in the recent ranked sprint because it locked you into tier 6, so you never had to deal with tier 8 battleships that, you know, just kind of crapped on you. And so here's a great opportunity for players with tier 9 ships who don't have their tier 10 yet to grind through them. So here's the picks, in my opinion, of what would work well for ranked, okay? And here's my first pick, the Z46. I said I was going to talk about it later. Here we go. The reason I picked the Z46 as a really good grinder ship is because it's really good at spamming torpedoes. It's got that hydro that can lock down the cap we mentioned earlier. It's got decent concealment. The guns, if you have a broadside destroyer, are still pretty good if you use AP. HE, it's a little bit lacking, but broadside cruisers, destroyers, even broadside battleships, AP into the superstructure is quite nice. Yeah, I think overall it's a pretty good pick for tier 9. I mentioned the Fletcher before. That's an obvious good pick. We saw Hush do crazy things in the Odoloy with a full gunboat build. I don't know that gunboat build would be the best setup for ranked, but you can definitely use the Odoloy. It's got those 8-kilometer torpedoes. Very helpful. It's got the speed. You don't need defensive fire. You can spec an engine boost. So overall, I think it's a very well-rounded destroyer. Beautiful for grinding through. Another one that's good for grinding through is the Tashkent, because you've got the heal as well here. or you could go smoke. But I think the heal is going to give you more mileage out of this ship. So Tashkent, I think, would be good for similar reasons as the Udaloy. Got torpedoes as well that are pretty nice that reach out to 8 kilometers. So neat. Kitakaze, of course, would be a good pick for grinding out. I think Chungmu is a great ship for grinding through in ranked. You've got the deep water torpedoes that can hit those cruisers and battleships quite well. You've got the guns of the Fletcher that can do good things as well. So I think this is an overall good pick for grinding. And then, of course, the Jutland I already spoke about there. So pretty much just about every tier 9 destroyer is grindable and ranked. Would you guys agree?
Pretty much. Even the Yugumo, you can abuse that concealment if you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Yugumo I'm going to mention later. I'm holding that one on purpose for a different commander build, or type, but you're absolutely right. Any other thoughts on the destroyers at all?
Well, as long as you understand the strengths and weaknesses, you can probably get through with every destroyer. Like, if you try to beat that Tashkent that charges into the middle of the caps at the start of the game, use a different ship. Because that's not what Tashkent's supposed to do. Tashkent can still work on the sides or be behind the destroyer as kind of a supporting destroyer, but if you try to use it as an actual destroyer, then you're probably not going to get too far.
Mm-hmm. Which is part of the reason why it's not the pick for like a Unicum players, right? But for grinding, sure.
Oh no, I know one person that'll probably try to use Tashkent in arms race.
Yeah, I have a feeling there will be a couple. There's always a couple, right? Especially that are really good with the ship and are able to utilize its strengths and abilities, and also take advantage of the fact that everybody else thinks it's not the quote-unquote meta ship, and therefore they don't think it's that, important to shoot at, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. It's not a meta ship in ranked, but it's actually quite powerful with all of the changes, especially the battleship AP change.
All right, any other comments on the destroyers, or shall we move on to cruisers? Okay, so cruisers. If you're trying to grind through cruisers, we already talked about Buffalo. Good option, I think. Seattle, I know SAT mentioned not so strong, or players might not like it as much. If you watch Flame's video, he talks a little bit about the capability of possibly stealth radaring once you get a couple of charges of that stealth booster. I think that this is a great ship for blapping destroyers. The problem is it gets blapped in return. But if you're grinding the ship, then whatever, you die and you take another ship and go back in, So I think Seattle will be an okay ship for people to grind through. What other ones? The Rune. We're going to talk about Rune later, but definitely you can grind through that ship, no problem. St. Louis. St. Louis is a good ship to grind through. I think this one of the reasons for the picks for that is because of the armor. It's got that little spaced armor, and if you can bait shots into the armor belt here, I think, correct me in a sec if I'm wrong, guys, but I think you can bounce, no problem, those 406mm guns. You have to be really good at doing that, and that's, again, we get into the Unicum stuff, but you can do that. It's got the pretty good 203mm guns that can reach out pretty long. One of the epic troll builds that you can do with the 203s is you can pop IFHE on it. Not as good as the Reese 240s with IFHE, but you can still get some other penetrating hits on some additional parts of ship armor. So we're talking about the 32 mils you automatically get here. So not so much on the Musashi. Let's take a look at Missouri. 38 here. So right up here on the deck armor, you can get pens on the deck and armor belt and the torpedo bulges area. So you can get a little bit more HE spam damage that way. On a few of the other ships too. I think it goes up to some odd millimeter pen. So your mileage may vary, but you can get a little bit more damage out of it that way. St. Louis, good pick in my opinion for grinding through the lines. Neptune you can do as well, similar to the St. Louis Seattle for the DD blaps and all that kind of lulls. And we'll talk more about Neptune later. Alright guys, what do you think?
So St. Louis and Rune, they're actually still very good ships, even if you're not intending to grind them. They have pretty good long range capabilities. St. Louis also has the main battle reload booster, so if you use it at the right time, you can go blow up specific important ships.
Yep.
Seattle, I don't. Even if you could technically stealth radar, I don't know if a lot of people will like it just because the gun arcs on that thing is so horrifically bad. What other ships did you mention?
On my list, I had Buffalo, Seattle, Rune, St. Louis, and Neptune.
Neptune, I don't know if people will grind through it just because you could actually grind through it with smoke, but people will yell at you for not taking radar. And if you take radar, then it's a completely different playstyle from random, so you'd probably yell at yourself for wondering why you're not taking smoke.
Good point. Any other comments, guys? Alright, so let's talk about the battleship picks. Again, these are for grinding people. And if I'm grinding, I'm probably looking at the Frederick as a good option. Secondary memes, it's got really good armor, as commented earlier, so I think the armor is going to help for players that are grinding through. It's also got the Hydro to detect torpedoes, you can pop the plane to shoot ships that are in smoke, or you can use the fighter, but I think you're better off using spotting, especially with no carriers. So I think Frederick is going to be good here. Lion, I think, is a good choice as well. It's got the LOL super heal. We'll talk about Lion a little bit later, as well as the Frederick. Alsace, another good opportunity for ship here. It's got the speed boost, so you can kind of zip around the map and stuff like that. And then Izumo, we already mentioned before the strengths of the Izumo, but definitely grind this baby out in rank. Thoughts, guys?
So, I think I'll be one of those people that grinds ship in ranked, namely the Lion and the Alsace. The Alsace just is okay, is meh, I guess. But the Lion, there's a couple of points I want to talk about with Lion. Firstly, the role of the it blobs destroyer hard early game, which is helpful, and short fuse AP. Is not going to troll you as hard with overpens when you shoot cruisers, while still retaining the overmatch. So, yeah, I think that's some of the strong points in terms of Lion.
I would agree. Very good at HE penetration as well, because British battleships also LOL get the 1/4 HE pen roll, so you can see 104mm pen, which means you're penetrating the side of even the St. Louis, pretty much any other cruiser that you come across.
It's kind of similar you'll probably see similar use to Conqueror, but the issue is Lion has 9 guns to the Conqueror's 12, so a lot of his shots, and it's not really accurate, so you still miss a fair amount of shots unless you're aiming at battleships.
Okay. Also, it's got the 32mm armor, so it can and will be chewed up by HE spammers. Other comments?
Oh, and Lion's turret firing angles are horrible. Absolutely horrible.
From kiting position or even chasing position?
Chasing.
Both. I find it to be both. Like, you can only reliably get 6 guns on target.
Yeah, this rear turret here, you have to have a pretty significant angle. Show a lot of broadside in order to get that third turret out there, and that will definitely punish a lot of people. Okay, well, we'll move on to the third player type. This one is very easy with only one ship out there, and that's people that have absolutely no credits and want to grind credits. It should be no surprise there that the Missouri is the clear winner here and the only ship that you would want to play for credit grinding. You guys agree?
Musashi makes good credits. Not as much, but if you want to get out of arms race, then I guess you can just take the Musashi.
Fair. Okay, let's move on to the fourth end. And these are players who are new to ranked and they've never played ranked before. Every season of ranked, you get players that come in that have no idea what the gameplay is like, get frustrated, yell at their teammates, yell at each other, whatever. And so for these, I'm trying to pick the ships that are most forgiving. And in my opinion, destroyer-wise, the most forgiving ship is probably going to be the Jutland, although it is a little bit harder to play. It's got that heal, which makes it very helpful. Again, for newer players, it doesn't punish the mistakes that we often see in ranked, like getting too close, getting derping in a radar range, etc., etc. Tashkent would also be, because it's got the heal, might be a pick, although I think from a destroyer perspective, Jutland is going to be your answer for that. Z46 I think is also a good pick because of the hydro, so you can sit in your smoke, and we see a lot of newer players doing that in ranked, smoking up and shooting from it. You've got the safety blanket of that hydro preventing you from getting torpedoed in the smoke, which is why I picked the Z46 for that. You guys have any thoughts about those two destroyers or other ones for new players?
I would agree with Jutland. Tashkent, as long as the destroyer knows that he's not a destroyer.
Yep.
Because otherwise, if you actually try to use it as a standard destroyer, then Tashkent is not very forgiving in that aspect.
Yep.
And I think Musashi could be pretty good for casual players. They just kind of sit there and shoot.
Yeah, that's true. You'll see a good number of Musashis probably trying to be a sniper at long range. And it does have a decent accuracy and blah 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 and overmatch. And actually that is one of my big picks for new players for battleship wise. We were just talking about destroyers first, but any other comments on destroyers?
Well, Kitakaze could also... You could probably include Kitakaze as well, just because it's so ridiculously good.
Yep, Kitakaze could work as well. And we'll talk about that little gem later on. For cruisers, there's only one pick in my opinion for a newer player, and that's probably going to be just Kronstadt, because it's relatively easy to bow in. It's got those guns that are pretty accurate with the high velocity shells and that sort of thing. This is for players who just don't really know map positioning that well, or just want to find an island to snuggle up to and only be shot at from the front or maybe one of the sides. You guys have any other picks for cruisers for people that are new to ranked?
Probably Rune.
Okay, why?
Rune has German turtleback armor, if I remember correctly, so it's a little bit more forgiving. Not if you go too far, of course. The shell arcs are pretty nice. It doesn't really explode, and Rune's already a good all-round ship. So, it should be fine in randoms, and should be fine here. And I assume that newer players aren't very good at using more specialized consumables like radar. Sure,
absolutely. Yep. And the Citadel, like you said, it's pretty low too, so it's hard to hit, especially at closer range. And of course, it's got the torpedoes for lull action late game. Okay. Now, here's where I think the battleship shines. For people that are new to the mode, I think the Lion is probably going to be their best choice, just simply because it's very easy to play. You just load AG and spam at battleships, cruisers, destroyers alike, and who cares? You've got the super heal in case you get into trouble, although keep in mind that it takes a while to get another super heal, so you can't depend on that to bail you out necessarily, but it is kind of helpful. It's relatively fast at about 30 knots, so in my opinion, I think the Lion is a great ship for newer players. And no, Hush, that does not mean I'm calling you a noob by any means. Frederick de Grossa, I think, is a good ship for newer players as well, mainly because of the armor. It's got the ability to take that armor and shove it into areas where other battleships might have problems. It's got the Hydro, which is a bit of a trap. When I ground this ship, I often thought that the Hydro would keep me safe from torpedoes, and it got me torpedoed more often than I preferred. But I think you could make it work. Alsace, I think, would be a decent ship for new players as well. You can spam HE, and you've got a pretty good HE capability there. Secondaries could bail you out. It's got the speed to get you from out of harm's way and into harm's way quite easily. But you know, we talked about Musashi, Missouri too. Pretty much all these ships, they've got the heal, which is very useful and ranked for basically staying alive and correcting any major mistakes that you might have made. Any thoughts, guys?
FTG is definitely easier to play due to its armor, but also there's that psychological problem of people yellowing in, even when there's no amount of armor in the world is going to save them. True.
Especially from the side, it can still take, you know, pens and even citadels every now and then.
People are mentioning the drone bot.
Yep.
And I think we can keep it off the list just because your newer players probably won't be getting her as a first ship.
Right. As a credit earner, Lert was mentioning earlier, for credits, yes, it could definitely get the credits, yes. But I would agree with you. You have to buy her now, I think only through Cole, before with free XP as well. So newer players probably don't have it, but you're right.
I still also would not recommend it. Even like you have to, playing Bowwin is possible, but he also opens up to getting just HE spam by cruisers. The HP pool is that of a tier 8 battleship, and the guns do not overmatch 27mm armor, which makes an issue against Alaska that's inevitably going to be spammed in ranked.
Mm-hmm.
And main battery reload booster isn't one of the easier things to... Well, it's easy to use, but it's kind of hard to master.
Yes, absolutely.
And a lot of players will just use it for free DPM when they don't know when to use it.
Yep, or they go to use it when a ship's already turning away or something and they miss the opportunity with that other reload. Okay, any other thoughts, guys, for newer players? If you're watching the stream and you are one of those newer players, please, by all means, play ranked. Feel free to submit replays to me so I can help you out with those ranked battles. Ask for help. Talk to your team. Try to work with them. You never know. Something might work out for you, but the important thing is give it a shot. At the end of the day, nobody is going to judge you if you make it to rank 1 and you've played 1,000 battles in that season. Yes, people might laugh and haha, funny, but you've got that rank 1, you got the flag, you got the steal, you got the bragging rights, and it is what it is. As a matter of fact, this next season, I'm probably going to try to play this more as a newer player and not as a Unicum, just because I want to get that, kind of get that feel for it, if that makes any sense. Yes, Lurt is absolutely correct. A player with 1,000 battles is far more patient than I am. I would absolutely agree with it. All right then. So number 5 kind of goes along with number 4 with new players. These are the players who don't want to think too much and they just want to play the game. This is a segment of players that I didn't notice until I was testing ships, specifically tier 1 ships. I remember testing the Chang'an, even the, what is it, oh god, I can't think of it off the top of my head now, the tier 1 British cruiser. I was amazed at how many
Black
players.
Swan?
Yes, the Black Swan. Thank you. I was amazed how many players there were playing Tier 1 ships, and I remember asking them, why the bleep do you have 8,000 battles in the Orlan? You know, or the Haremlin, or the Erie. They're fun ships, yes, but 8,000 battles, and they're randoms, and I couldn't believe it, and you know, they got Unicum stats in it and stuff, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And they answered with a very simplistic answer. There's no radar, there's no hydro, there's no torpedoes, there's no aircraft carriers, there's no defensive fire, there's no smoke. There's none of these things that everybody has to think about, so it's a very easy game to play for people who don't want to think. I was blown away when I saw that, and I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I think of that? You know, like, sometimes it's nice to go back to that Tier 1 and just play around, and who cares, you know? So, for these people, the ships that I think are the best for those people, one is, here comes the Kitakaze. Why is the Kitakaze the best for that? Because the Kitakaze is best played, in my opinion, at medium to long range. You've got the 100mm pen that penetrates automatically 24 mil, plus then you add to it the IFHE, and you're penetrating 32mm armor, which is just silly. You can just sit back, hold down the left mouse button, and just pew, 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 like crazy in your smoke. You don't, if you're far off in the distance, you don't have to worry about radar. You probably don't have to worry about being torpedoed in your smoke. You don't have to worry about hydro. You don't have to worry about carriers, because, well, no carriers. You can spam your 12-kilometer torpedoes, and you can use your reload booster and stuff like that. You could also put the F3s on for the extra lols, but I don't know that you want to be a berserker Kitakaze. You could do it if you want. You've got the torpedo reload booster, which enables you to spam torpedoes more rapidly. So that's kind of fun. Yes, edge case, I did skip the Kitakaze. I went straight to the Haragumo, and it's simply because at the time I needed a tier 10, and I had all the free XP in the world. So that being said, I might just play Kitakaze this season of rank, because everybody tells me that Kitakaze is so amazing, all that good stuff. Now, if you've got Yamamoto, put Yamamoto on for even more lols, alright? Get a Kraken, and then you're just dirty. So Kitakaze, I think, is a really good pick for people that don't want to think that much. The black is a good pick for those people as well, because you've got the smoke, you've got the long-range HE shells that, while they might not hit necessarily, you can sit there and just spam like crazy. More importantly, it's got the long-range torpedoes that reload relatively quickly. And why are these so helpful? Because you just spam them at any choke point. Don't spam them on ships. Look at where ships, especially your team, look where they're not, guys, okay? You don't want to team kill them. But look where enemies aren't, and just just send a rack at a channel, and then send another rack at another channel. And then about 3 or 4 minutes later, when you're already sending your next rack out at somebody, you'll get another torpedo hit, and you'll be like, huh? And yeah. So I think black is good for not thinking so much. Of course, you know, you've got the radar too and big brain plays, but you can always put engine boost on if you don't want to think that much even more. And Yugumo, I think, would be a good pick here for people that don't want to think, because you can go to, you've got your pretty decent detectability. You add to that torpedo reload booster or smoke. I would probably say for most it would be torpedo reload booster, and you just torpedo the crap out of everything. All right. So this is a really good pick, in my opinion, for people that just want to tor spam. And I want to put this out there. When I'm saying people that don't want to think, I'm in no means calling anybody a bad player or, you know, anything like that, okay? I'm just saying people that are playing from a different perspective. All right? Any comments on Destroyers, guys?
Yes. Why does your black have DFAA?
My black has DFAA because when I play randoms, especially when I play with carriers like tier 10 carriers, tier 9 carriers, tier 8 carriers, it is so hilarious to throw smoke in here and then basically turn this thing into a Fletcher, and it's got this crazy torpedoes, and then I've got the beautiful camouflage, which adds 150% to everything. So some of you guys know I am Smog. I like to grind free XP. This is my free XP grinding boat. There's your answer.
Sorry, I was a carrier.
Yes, he was. Anyway, back to ranked. Oh, Fem's rating with 285 viewers. Wow. Thanks, guys. Holy crud. And for those of you guys that are joining in, hey, we are talking about ranked Season 9 prep. We're kind of towards the end of our talk, but we're talking about right now people that don't want to think too much in the season of ranked. So we are talking about Kitakaze, Black, and Yugumo. Guys, any other comments on that? Oh, and I'm going to put this out there. If you guys want to join in on the fun, we are in the World of Warships NA community Discord. I'll post a link up here. Oh, lots of follows. Thanks, guys. Go ahead, comment.
So for Yugumo, yes, she can play quite nicely if you're skilled enough, but if you want to play more laid back, I'd actually recommend a different ship just because people are going to expect you to do destroyer things. And I assume if you're playing Yugumo not in a more laid back faction, that probably means you're just going to take the safe caps and maybe just stay away and torp stuff, not so much on the spotting or fighting at their destroyers. And that's going to probably cause your team to yell at you. Probably.
That's very true.
For that, I would probably recommend Udaloy and Hashkin just because you can stay at range and spam.
Okay.
Spam like Kitakaze. Although I'd still take the Kitakaze because 32mm penetration is a bit more useful.
It's just dirty, isn't it?
Yes.
Good point, though, on the Tashka and Udaloy. And they are definitely picks. I should have thought of it. I didn't. That's part of the reason it's great that you guys are here. Storm Tiger, thanks for the follow.
Udaloy is also scheduled to get a heal, if I remember correctly, so Udaloy is actually going to become very good.
Yes, lots of people following. Thank you very much for the follow, guys. And don't forget to get in the raffle. And you're absolutely correct. The Udaloy is supposed to get a heal, which is going to just make her even more fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other comments, guys, on destroyers for people that don't want to think too much in ranked? Moving on, then, we get to the cruisers, and here is where I will comment on the Rune. I think the Rune is a great ship for people who just want to play and just kind of sit back and do stuff, because it's got pretty good range. It's got 203mm that pen 50mm because of the 1/4 HE pen, which means when you see all those guys in the Frederick de Grossas, you can still penetrate their fore-end plating, and you can penetrate their aft plating, as well as a little bit of an end and foredeck, those 50mm, and the midsection. Note, though, you can't pen those 80mm deck sections as well. But this is an extreme example. When we talk about the other battleships, you can definitely penetrate those decks. Musashi, you've got this whole area up here at the front and the rear you can pen. You guys can hear a lot of people subscribing. Thank you very much for the subscribes, guys. Subscribing, whoa. And the follow, that's amazing. You can pen here the Missouri deck as well. And even getting into like the Kronstadt and stuff like that, there's areas. Well, no, you can pen all of this already. Never mind. Alaska? Yep, there's 36mm you can pen. So I think the Rune is going to be a good kind of laid back, sit back, and HE spam at long range. What makes the Rune so fun is that towards the end, when it's time to save your star, you've got your 6km torpedoes, you've got the decent armor we've talked about earlier, so you can just kind of go right in, torp people in the face with those 6km torps, and maybe sink a battleship or two in the process. So I think Rune's a great ship for that. We haven't talked about the Ibuki at all this season in this video yet. I think the Ibuki will be a good for a player that doesn't want to think too much, because again, you're at long range. All you have to do is spam that HE, kind of move around a little bit. You've got really good fire chance with your HE salvos. Thanks again for the follows, guys. And you've got the ability to torpedo at 10 kilometers should something get too close to you. You've got, you know, I believe, yes, you've got hydro for protection against torpedoes. You've got your spotter plane that I would definitely do spotting aircraft for even longer range shells. So I think the Ibuki is a good choice here. We haven't talked about the Donskoy either, and the Donskoy I think would be a great ship at max range as well. Really good muzzle velocity. When I ground this ship, I actually ran the range module for like something stupid like 20-kilometer range. And yes, it actually saved a few games, believe it or not. So I would say, whoop, click there. It's really good for that. It's also got the 8-kilometer torpedoes, which is pretty handy. The reason why I think it's not necessarily good for Unicums and others and stuff is just simply because of the terrible, terrible concealment that it has. So I don't know that I would necessarily want to run it in that kind of a setup. But max range, yes. And then, of course, you've got those torpedoes for save a star time. And let's see, St. Louis, same reason, long range fire spamming. Guys, any thoughts on those?
I think the Matrix is a little bit better than what you give it credit for. The 180mm guns are actually, they have very high shell velocity, and I found that they're able to consistently hit destroyers even at the edge of the radar range. I think definitely a lot better suited for radar than Kronstadt. Kronstadt, I think, is also still pretty good at being laid back just because you can sit at range, hit low citadel random things.
That's true. I didn't consider Kronstadt, but yes, you're right.
St. Louis is, I think it requires a little bit more work because the shells are a bit more floaty. And to get the most use out of it, you actually have to use your speed boost, not only just to go places, but also to go move back and forth to juke battleship shells.
Good point.
And then there's the main battery reload booster.
Yeah, it does require a little bit more thought in there. But this is really good, so... Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
I'll go on with the St. Louis.
The thing about the St. Louis that's nice, and you could make the argument for the Jean Bart as well, I suppose, is if you just want to HE spam everything, you can set fires on battleships, you watch for their DCP. As soon as they DCP, that's when you turn on the reload booster and get them back on fire.
That is true. At the worst, it's basically just free DPM.
Yep.
Ibuki, I don't think it's that good for being laid back, just because you just get double citadel through the butt anyways, so probably that'd probably end your experience pretty quickly.
That is true.
I do agree with pretty much everything you said about Ruined.
Okay, cool. Any other comments, guys, on the cruisers? Moving on then, the battleships. There's only one battleship that you truly play and don't want to think about. I mean, we talked about John Barton a second ago, but that would definitely be the Lion. Again, HE spam, you just burn everything down, whatever. You've got the heal to get you out of things. So I think this is just a very easy, laid back, sit back and do things. Musashi maybe as well, but definitely the Lion.
I'll say you can do it too if you just pure HE spam. Maybe not quite as good in the HE spam role, but still does gets the job done.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'll probably be one of those people.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I ranked out in Fuso doing the exact same thing, you know? Because I didn't want to think that season. And it was probably the most stress-free season of ranked I'd ever had and ever will have. So there's nothing wrong with saying I'm just going to take the Lion and burn all the things, you know? Lurd is bringing up Musashi with the lull pen at long range. Sure. True. You could do that.
Yeah. Musashi is also pretty straightforward to use.
Yep. Alright. If you guys don't mind, we'll move on to the sixth and final type of player. We've been talking for almost an hour now. It's pretty crazy. These are my picks for what I would say are fun ships and builds. These are for when you just don't care. You want to have fun. You're putting fun above everything else. Fun above winning. Fun above moving on and progressing in ranked. All that kind of stuff. Maybe you had a really bad game in ranked and you just want to sit back and do stupid things. So, let's begin with none other than our secondary spec battleships. the Frederick the Grosse, probably best secondary spec battleship because, if I recall correctly, the 150s just recently got buffed and can now penetrate 37 millimeters of armor. LOL. The 105s aren't too shabby either, especially for setting fires on things. So I see the Freddy as a really, really good battleship if you just want to do secondary spec memes. You can get your secondaries out to like, what, 10.7 kilometer, I think, with max secondary boost. So that can work. And similarly, the Alsace for secondary memes. Alsace, if you've got the special French commander, Jean-Jacques, or the one that you can buy, that's right, guys, you can buy a commander in the arsenal. You go to commanders, and you can buy, where is it? There we go, Charles Henri Honoré. Has the same buffs that you would normally have. So it's got the turret traverse buff, and more importantly, it's got the adrenaline rush buff, which jives so well with going secondary build. So Alsace is a great opportunity for secondaries. Guys, what do you think about fun builds for battleships? Yes?
Secondaries is about the best you can get for fun builds. There really isn't many other options.
Yep.
I'll say secondary is kind of fun, but the problem is you tend to lose those secondaries way too quickly.
Yes, you definitely need then to have the auxiliary armaments module for upgrades. Even then, you will lose them. Yep.
I've also found that Alsace is oddly very good at speed juking, just going back and forth in the same spot. If you have the propulsion mod and the speed boost, at about 15 or 16 kilometers, you can actually bait battleships into shooting you, and they'll either miss completely or they'll just bounce off your belt if you are timing it correctly.
Yep. Chad is correcting me, by the way. Maximum range for secondaries would be 11.3 with all the boosts. Thank you for the correction, guys. Been a while since I've done secondary meme stuff. Hi, Scheist. Anyway, any other commentary on secondary spec battleships?
Also, one other thing.
Sure.
Can you double check the Joan bot? Because I think she can also mount a plane instead of the main battery reload booster.
No.
Because I remember there was one French battleship that could do that. Don't know why. Why you would ever do that.
I think you're thinking of Tier 8. I think you might be thinking of the Gascon. Yeah, Gascon is playing.
Okay, it could be the Bourgogne too. I forgot which one.
I don't think the Bourgogne has a plane. Let me take a look. No.
Oh, that's Gascon.
Yep, that's just the Gascon.
Okay.
All right. I have a couple other thoughts for fun focus. If you're not into silly battleship fun, that would be just torp spamming with Z46. You throw torp on it and full torp build, and you end up with pretty crazy reload on your torpedoes. And you could even do the same thing with the black. And I talked about earlier, just torpedoing all the little choke point channels and stuff like that. So, you know, if you want to do that, or if you want to go crazy Death Blossom, the Jutland was your choice. Charge in, guns blazing, maybe kill a destroyer, maybe kill 2 destroyers, maybe torpedo that battleship that's just too close, and die early, but take people with you.
I think that's a bit better suited for Kitikaze, just because Kitikaze has way more firepower.
True, that's also a good point.
Jutland, the difference with Jutland is that with, I think, 5.7 concealment, you can charge into the cap, kind of bait almost every other destroyer that's shooting at you, then you immediately smoke up. You can immediately smoke up destroyers. If someone still has line of sight on them, then they'll get shot at. You just run away. If they want to hide in smoke, that's... Well, your smoke just dissipates pretty quickly, so their smoke will still like block line of sight for their team, whereas yours won't, so you can do all sorts of fun stuff with it.
Yep, and you got the Hydra too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Kitakaze obviously also with the Daka Daka things. So I mean, you could definitely do YOLO Death Blossom with either of those choices. And then my last choice for fun builds and ships, one would be the Seattle for just destroyer blapping funsies. We talked about that earlier. And it's got the Hydro too, so it makes it a little bit easier for you. Probably take off premium defensive fire, because why waste the credits? But the other one that I want to talk about that could be a very fun destroyer blap build would be a Neptune. We talked about that earlier a little bit, but what I like about the Neptune is, yes, you can get yelled at for using smoke, but I'll tell you what, I like the fact that the ship offers two completely different playstyles, right? You've got the radar, you know, kind of man up and jump in and spot that destroyer and, you know, whatever. But you've also got the smoke to be able to kind of sit back and just kind of, you know, be a little bit lazy, you know, farm some ships or something like that. Maybe bait battleships into charging you and then torpedoing them with your single fire torps and stuff. So what I like about the Neptune is it's very flexible. There's a lot of options in how you play it.
I think going back to destroyers, I think we missed the TRB Yugumo.
Oh, yeah, good point. Torpedo Reload Yugumo would be a great, especially with the F3s, that's the ultimate Death Blossom right there, right?
Oh god.
Slap on Torpedo Acceleration for extra lols.
I do that on Shimakaze. It's fun until you run into 5 radars and like everyone has Hydro. A little bit less fun though. But yeah, F3 torpedoes are... Well, even if you just go with the standard 12-kilometer torpedoes on Yugumo, it's still quite fun to run with TRB.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So, yeah, you're right. Yugumo could be a very fun build. Okay. Well, any other comments, guys, about ranked? I know this is a lot of talking heads, so sorry those of you that joined in with FemStream here, but we're talking about ranked, and I know for a lot of players this is a sore subject, so trying to kind of make some choices here, some suggestions for ships and all that good stuff.
And I guess since everybody has Hydro, well, I mean, all the cruisers and a lot of the destroyers nowadays have Hydros, F3s has extra value in nullifying those. Like, if you're not careful, even with Hydro running, you could still get caught.
Yep. Good point.
There's also the meta to consider. The last couple of seasons has generally been destroyer and battleship heavy. Sometimes you'll see cruisers, but generally you'll see more battleships and destroyers in each game. So F3s would still be pretty useful just because only one battleship this time around will have radar. So most of the time you can just walk up to a battleship, and if a destroyer isn't nearby, or even if he is, he might get torped too.
Yep.
So you can torpedo battleships no problem, and maybe destroyers if you get lucky.
And that's one of the nice things about ranked is since there's so many fewer opponents, it can really enable you to practice some skills. And I think for Yugumo, especially if you go F3, that's going to be island ambushing, right? Nailing ships as they come around islands and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other comments,
There's
guys?
also...
Go ahead.
For Neptune, it's also a very good way to practice for Minotaur, because Neptune and Minotaur, in terms of like function and usage, is pretty much the same. Neptune can abuse radar and smoke, especially with the radar getting scheduled to be upgraded. So if you mastered the Neptune in ranked, you can definitely master the Minotaur when you take her into randoms.
Absolutely.
Or in any sort of competitive format.
You know, I have to say, now that you're mentioning that, I really enjoyed the Neptune when I was grinding her, but then when I got to the Minotaur, I just hated it. And lately I've been playing it a lot more, and I'm learning to love it, but you're absolutely right. It's a really good all-around British cruiser. And Lego Party, thanks for the resubscription, man. 3 months, holy crap. Thank you.
I find it interesting because most people find it the other way around. Minotaur is a lot more enjoyable to play as opposed to Neptune. Like, Neptune's concealment is 10.0 base right now, which is very problematic.
I think for me it was I got accustomed to playing the British cruisers a certain way because Minotaur is different than the other British cruisers. And from a progression side of things, the Neptune felt like a better progression up the line. And then Minotaur, I just felt like I kept getting into this false sense of security where I was safe, and lol, no, I'm not. So that's
Fair enough.
that's kind of my experience. Well, we're gonna kind of end the stream in a little bit here, but Tom, you've been asking a really important question, and for new players, this is a great question to be asking. Hey, what are the upgrades in the arsenal for? So let's talk about that real quick. There are some upgrades that are like awesome that you absolutely must get, and there are some that are not so much. And keep in mind, these used to only be obtainable in super containers. So you'd pick up a super container and you'd look at it and you'd be like, hey, I got a damage control party modification 1 consumable, a 40% action time of DCP, and realize, oh, crap, what am I going to do with it? Same thing with defensive fire and et cetera, et cetera. So these are modules that you put on your ships, specific ships, and consult the wiki for that. If any of you guys can, do me a favor, go to the wiki and copy paste that link in for the upgrades there. But they're meant to change how ships play. So surveillance radar adds 20% to radar uptime. Very, very useful for for U.S. cruisers and also for Russian cruisers, black and anything else that can mount it. This is considered a must-get upgrade. Hydroacoustic is nice in that it increases the time that hydroacoustic search lasts, especially for like British destroyers. This basically means you pop it and you've got hydro for like a quarter of the round or something stupid. Thank you, Lego Party, for posting that link. Appreciate that. So that's really nice. The downside is because hydro lasts longer, that means that you're on cooldown later, which means that that other time you might need that hydro, it's not ready. So your mileage may vary. Defensive fire is great if you hate carriers and you hate when they try to bait your defensive fire and stuff like that. Or if you're like me and playing a black with Fletcher style with defensive fire, throw this on that puppy, pop yourself in smoke, have your buddy bait the carrier fighters or even bombers over you in the smoke. They don't see it, they don't realize it. Turn on your defensive fire and just watch as they melt for a while. Damage control party mod is good for USN battleships. I experimented with a little bit because you have 20 seconds of base DCP time where you're immune to fire and flood. Add this on there, now you're immune for 28 seconds instead. But that also means it takes you longer to get your DCP active. Your mileage might vary there. I don't like it. Spotting aircraft is really good on one ship specifically, and that would be the Perth. Pop this on the Perth, and now you're spotting aircraft lasts for even longer while you're in your smoke, detecting ships around you so you can shoot them, all that kind of stuff. And it's absolutely hilarious to use that. It's also good for ships that depend on scouting aircraft like the Zhao. You could even do it with Hindenburg, I think, and other ships like that. Smoke generator, also really good on the Perth, great on Haida. Anything that's got the rolling smoke capability, so Huan He, really good too. Because it means that you're putting your smoke out for longer. Keep in mind that the dispersion time of the smoke, in other words, the amount of time that smoke sticks, is down by 5%. So you technically don't want to do it on a lot of your other ships, but you could do it maybe on British destroyers because the smoke doesn't last that long anyway. Maybe on USN destroyers it's decent to use, but if you're the kind of player, especially on destroyers, that likes to pop smoke, stop immediately, then this isn't going to help you much. It's really good for people that like to drag their smoke out over long distances. Competitive clan battles, this actually might. Engine boost modification is really, it's just like the surveillance radar, probably one of the best mods that you can pick up. You throw this on anything that's got engine boost, and bam, you've got an extra 50% of uptime, which means you can get to the other side of the map and just do crazy things. Throw this on your Kavarosk. You throw this on your French cruisers, even on the French battleships, and just go all over the place. It's hilarious. Did I miss anything, guys?
That's really about it. Of all of the ones that you've shown, I would recommend getting Engine Boost because, as you said, it's so versatile. You can put it on all of your destroyers.
Yep.
And and most of the French ships as well. Surveillance radar is also very powerful if you have the right ships for it. Hydro is also pretty versatile, but the other four are either limited in usage or just not very useful.
Yep.
Like damage control party, I think you can get away without it. DFAA I wouldn't recommend just because the standard 30 seconds or 40 seconds, it's already good enough for most carriers. Although, wait a minute, that might also probably change with the upcoming CB rework anyways.
Yes.
Smoke Generator, as you said, works on pretty much 2 ships. It's Perth and Smoke Legendary Mod Minotaur. And spotting aircraft is a bit wonky, especially if you're not used to using it. Just it makes you stay in spotting view for longer. So, like, if you only need it for about 10 or 15 seconds, and then you, then it could throw off your aim for like the next minute or 2.
Yep. This is really good though. Also, like on a Molotov, I find.
I guess it helps with the staying farther and not getting blown up aspect.
Yes, exactly. But you're right. So, as you guys heard, and one of the things to keep in mind is the arsenal has coupons, and these coupons refresh during the major patches that we hit. Now, 0.8.0 has been delayed. Unfortunately, they didn't change the coupon refresh, and I didn't catch that, so that kind of sucks. Which means that now your coupons will be refreshed on the 27th, which I'm guessing is right before 8.1 hits. So you've got from now until you've basically got a full month to when you can reuse these coupons. But what I like to do is I typically like to pick up upgrades, signals with my coupons, maybe the camouflages. There's tons of camos out there, but you can use them on any of the coal ones. Please don't buy back to school. But, you know, Frosty Fir Tree is pretty good to use. You know, Revolutionary, if you're grinding credits, is fine. Don't buy Ocean Soul. But anyway, you can pick those up if you want. That's kind of nice. Signals, you know, Sierra Mikes, you can never do without, and Juliet Charlie. There's really, there's really no reason or excuse to detonate these days. Because you can pick these up for so cheap. Relatively speaking. Ships, I would recommend taking your time and only using ships like you don't want to use a coupon on the Charleston, right? And I wouldn't use a coupon personally on any of the coal ships. I'd use a coupon on steel ships like the Stalingrad or the Black or the Bragon or something like that. Or the soon.tm steel ship, whatever that's going to be. But yeah, so take some time, look around the arsenal. There's a lot of good things that you can pick up here that you didn't even know existed. Oh, I don't have the clan patches, I guess. I should probably buy those. And from time to time, they've got commanders. These are all good commanders. Maybe not so much the German ones are really useful, but the Russian one's very good, especially Moscow, Stalingrad. For Dunkirk, throw him on the line for ranked and just have fun. And the does are pretty good too. So, I guess that's about it, unless there's anything else you guys want to chat about real quick. Otterclay, thanks for the follow. And yes, I have a lot of doubloons. Sorry, I just don't know what to spend them on.
I think we pretty much covered everything.
Alright, well, in that case then, I'm gonna do the characteristic say goodbye music, which I love, the Let's Horn. We're gonna do our last drawing. We'll go ahead and do 2 drawings since we've been talking for over an hour now, and then we'll sign out and stuff. So guys, thanks for hanging out. Those of you in chat, if you want to talk any more while I'm doing the drawing, please feel free to do so. I'd be happy to entertain that. So SAT, Hush, anybody else want to talk? Go for it.
Any future World of Warships events that we might want to mention? Competitive wise?
What do you mean by that?
There should be like King of the Seas coming up and War Games. You want to announce that now or?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I just drew myself. Sorry. Anyway, yes, so we've got King of the Sea coming up. We've got the War Game series, which is a great opportunity if you don't know anything about competitive to get your feet wet and get in there. Yours truly will be broadcasting most of those as well as others. So yes, those are player-run opportunities. Also, good opportunity to get some winning some doubloons and stuff like that. So Alkin Pandora, congratulations, you've won, and I don't remember who the other winner was. Chirmoa, or Cremoa. So send me messages or whatever, and there you are. I'll get you your community contributor container. SAT, anything else you think we should mention?
That's all I can think about for now. After this patch, it's the CV rework supposed to come out, and that's gonna cause quite a stir, to say the very least.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that works, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I'm just ready for the inevitable assault that's gonna follow on the forums.
Well, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a learning curve for people, and I think it's important that people look into it with an open mind, look at it as an opportunity to try different things. And I think the most important part is you get the free commander respec and all that, so you got an opportunity to just change everything however you want, which is great.
Definitely. Oh yeah, and yeah, the Captain Respec is gonna come, so we can all just get into Tier 4, Tier 5 ships with DFAA and just farm planes. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, a lot of changes, a lot of different meta stuff. You just don't know what you're gonna end up with. So just try it out and see. Go in with an open mind. And if it's really that bad, Wargaming's gonna do something about it. They're not just gonna sit there and say, oh well, deal with it. It might take some time, but they're gonna do stuff. And I'll tell you what, I am on the community contributor Discord, of course, and talking with developers directly and stuff. And both sides are extremely passionate about this, and it's amazing to see the kind of discussion we've been having. Obviously, it's NDA, I can't tell you about it, but I can clearly tell you that both sides really do want this to work out well for everybody. And it's very rare that you get developers that are so passionate about the game that they're building and playing, and players that are so passionate about it too. It's why I'm still here, and I think it's why a lot of you guys are still here too. So with that, those of you that were in the Discord, that would be Push and SAT and Saru. I think that's all of you guys. Thank you very much for hanging out. It was a lot of fun talking through rank stuff. Sorry we didn't get to that Kumo replay. Those of you guys that just jumped in, send me your replays as well if you want. I've got 80 replays ready to go for next weekend, assuming the patch 0.8.0 doesn't come out. And we'll see how many more replays I get this week, but it's always great being able to showcase good gameplay or bad gameplay and talk about how that impacts the game, and more importantly, how we can improve players and stuff like that. So, as always, guys, great having you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us on. Where do you want us to send the replays again?
Yeah, replays go to lordzathna@gmail.com. You can see that on the bottom of the screen there. And don't forget to follow my YouTube channel, or subscribe to it, whatever, if you get a chance. All of the video replays that I do, I post onto the YouTube channel. So I think I'm on like number 370 or 380 now, or something crazy like that. So definitely be sure to check that out. I've got playlists for each of the different classes of ships. So if you're struggling to play, say, Destroyer, check out that playlist, and you'll see a lot of good replays and stuff like that. With that, we should probably do some rating, huh? Who's online that we can rate? Now, a lot of you guys came in here from Fem. We've got
no one from ZR is streaming from right now. I'm sad.
Okay. Yeah, we could have done that. Citizen streaming. Well, so Ashley streams. She's got 419 people watching already, and I presume some of you guys might be watching her too that are hanging out in here. So, I usually prefer to go for some of the lesser known streamers, just as a chance for them to kind of get out there too, and you know, stick with them or not. It's up to you. Still scrolling. A lot of people streaming today right now. That's cool. Any of you guys in chat see anybody worth Oh, you got a Massachusetts icon. Oh my god, that's what, number 6 now we got a list out there. Holy crap, that's awesome. That's the first time he actually won anything, and he won a tier 8 premium ship. That's so cool.
Nice.
Yeah. That's so cool. I'm so glad they put this community contributor program together. Amazing stuff. I'm still scrolling down. I don't see anybody else I recognize. SAT, do you? Or Hoosh?
Citizen Soldier 9 is really the only person I recognize here.
Alright, you think we should raid him?
I'm up for it.
Alright, so let's raid... I'm sorry, Hoosh, go ahead.
Why not?
Why not raid him?
Yep, alright, we're gonna raid him. And guys, when you raid him, do me a favor, let's do the characteristic Zath wave. That's gonna be that, okay? Alright guys, we're gonna raid in 3 seconds. Once again, thanks everybody for hanging out. Great seeing you all. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.